Welcome to my channel. Have you ever wondered what really happens when you go ghost for real? I'm not talking about disappearing for a day or two to play games. I'm talking about fully stepping back. No texts, not kissing, no explanations. When you do that, when you truly withdraw, something unexpected happens. The entire dynamic between you and her begins to shift. Today, we're going to break down exactly what happens when you go ghost for real and why it can be the most powerful moves you'll ever make as a man. Let's dive in. The power shift begins in silence. Number 1. The power shift begins in silence. When you truly disappear, not just half-coasting, not just playing games, but really stepping back, the entire dynamic between you and her changes. It's no longer about who texts first, who explains more, or who tries harder. You remove yourself from her orbit completely. And in that silence, something powerful happens. The emotional balance shifts. You see, most men get stuck in the same pattern. They keep reaching out, hoping for closure, trying to stay in the conversation just enough to feel relevant. But when you go ghost for real, you're not just ignoring her texts for a day or two. You're accusing to step into something deeper, a kind of inner discipline that most people don't have the courage to practice. In that silence, you're telling the world and yourself, I don't need external permission to have peace. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Withdraw into yourself. The inner fortress is invincible." That's exactly what you're redoing when you stop chasing. You're retreating into your own mental fortress, not out of spite, but out of wisdom. You're no longer participating in the emotional tug-of-war. Instead, you become still. You become scarce. And in today's world, where everyone is constantly available, constantly performing, that kind of stillness is rare. It leaves a mark. Think about it like this. When a song plays non-stop on the radio, people get used to it. They stop noticing it. But when that song suddenly disappears from the playlist, silence takes its place. And with the pens, people start to miss it. They remember the melody, the lyrics, the way it made them feel. Your absence works the same way. When you remove your presence from her life, without warnings, without drama, she's left with the akoof who you were. The more she sits in that silence, the more she begins to feel the weight of it. But here's the catch. The goal isn't to punish her. That's not Stoic. The goal is to free yourself from needing to be seen, replied to, or acknowledged. When you do that, you're no longer reacting to her behavior. You're acting on principle, not emotion. You're teaching yourself to be comfortable in your own space, regardless of who notices. So remember, when you go ghost for real, it's not just about her wondering where you went. It's about you reclaiming control of your life, your time, and your emotional energy. You're stepping back, not to create confusion, but to create clarity for yourself first, and eventually for her, too. Number 2, curiosity replaces comfort. Curiosity replaces comfort when you go ghost for real. Comfort turns into confusion. She starts wondering, where did he go? Why isn't chasing me anymore? And this is where everything shifts. The space you've created isn't just physical, it's psychological. The comfort of knowing you were always there, always available, quietly slips away. In its place, curiosity, doubt, reflection. She starts to replay old conversations. Check your social media. Maybe even reread the last messages you sent. That's what happens when you truly disappear. Not halfway, not with games, but with full intentional silence. Remember what Seneca said? Rarity gives everything its value, and that includes your presence. When you were always there, replying fast, constantly showing up, she may have appreciated you, but she never had to think twice about you. Now, your absence creates a gap, and the mind hates gaps. It wants to fill them. Imagine you're reading a story and suddenly a page is missing right before the ending. What happens? You can't stop thinking about it. You wonder what you missed. You keep flipping back, trying to figure it out. That's exactly what happens when you pull away silently and completely. You've just made yourself rare. And as the Stoics taught, what is rare becomes precious. Not because you forced it, but because you stopped flooding the situation with effort. In a day's world where most people over-explain, overshare, and overreact, silence is power. You're not ghosting to manipulate. You're ghosting to realign with yourself. You're choosing clarity over chaos. You're letting the natural shift happen. Comfort turns into curiosity, and that curiosity leads her to reevaluate everything. So if you've gone ghost for real, stand firm. Don't break the silence because you feel guilty or impatient. Let her sit in Yunknown for a while. Sometimes it's not your words that change the dynamic, it's your absence. Number 3, you stop negotiating your you. Stop negotiating your worth. When you go ghost for real, you stop negotiating your worth. It's not about revenge, and it's not about teaching her a lesson. It's about reclaiming your value silently. You're no longer the guy writing long paragraphs, trying to convince her of your intentions, explaining why you deserve better, or asking her to see your side. You cut that energy off, not because you're cold, but because you finally realize something powerful. Eamon, who knows his worth, doesn't debate it. Think about it. Every time you over-explain, every time you chase clarity that someone refuses to give, you're indirectly saying, please validate me. Please confirm that I'm valuable, Andy. More you do that, the more you dilute your presence. You become noise in her life instead of impact. But when you go ghost, not halfway but fully, you send a different message without saying a word. You step into silence, and silence carries weight. Stoic wisdom reminds us of this. Epictetus said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish or misunderstood. Let that sink in for a moment. When you stop explaining yourself, some people will misunderstand your silence. They might call you distant. They might say you gave up too easily. But here's the: you're not in the business of convincing anyone of your worth anymore. You're in the business of protecting your peace. For example, imagine she sus to you being available, always responding fast, always fixing things, always checking in. Then one day you disappear. No warnings, no dramatic speeches, just stillness. That shift creates a vacuum, and that vacuum forces her to sit with the reality of who you were and what you were. Brought. She wondered where the attention went, where the reassurance went, where you went. But here's the key. You're not waiting for her reaction. You're not secretly hoping she comes running back. You're simply refusing to sell yourself at a discount anymore. Marcus Aurelius said, the tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say or think or do, that's where your power lives now, in your refusal to participate in cycles that drain you. Going ghost for real is about stepping back into your own lane. You stop chasing closure. You stop trying to be understood by someone who isn't ready to meet you at your level. You choose silence over self-betrayal. And in that space, something changes. Not just in her, but in you. You start to feel lighter, calmer, and more focused, because you finally stop negotiating with your own value. You've a desk to be still and let your absence speak for itself. Her mind fills in the blanks. Number 4. Her mind fills in the blanks. Silence forces the other person to write a story in their own head. And the human mind, it hates loose ends. When you go ghost for real, when you stop checking in, stop explaining. Stop keeping the connection alive just to avoid discomfort. Something interesting happens. Her mind starts working overtime. She replayed the last conversation. She analyzed her tone, your words, even your silences. Suddenly, she's filling in gaps with her own imagination. And here's the thing. The imagination often creates scenarios far more intense than reality. Maybe she starts to wonder, did it meet someone else? Or did I push him too far? Sometimes it's not even about romantic interest. It's about the discomfort of uncertainty. And that's exactly why your absence has so much power. A Stoic man understands this. You don't need to control how she perceives you. As Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, it is not things that disturb you, but their opinions about things. Your silence becomes the canvas and Herman paints the picture. Think about this. When you were constantly available, constantly explaining yourself or trying to fix things, there was no room for curiosity. Everything was spelled out. But when you remove yourself from the equation, when you truly go ghost, It's like closing the book halfway through the story. She's left holding it, wondering what the ending was supposed to be. Was it her fault? Did you get tired of the game? Did you finally realize your worth? The truth is, you don't need to supply Thene's wars. That's not your role. Your role is to protect your peace and respect your own boundaries. Epictetus said, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. And in this case, your response is withdrawal. Not out of spite, but out of self-respect. So when you disappear completely, not half ghosting, but really stepping back, know this. Her mind will do what minds naturally do. It will fill in the blanks, often in ways that magnify your absence. You don't have to chase, explain, or beg for clarity. Let silence do its work. Let her sit with uncertainty. And most importantly, let yourself sit with your own stillness. That's where real power lives. Number 5, emotional detox kicks in. Emotional detox kicks in. Ghosting gives you space to clear your emotional system. Maybe you were drained. Maybe you were too available. Now, by stepping back, you detox from the drama. As Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Without her daily presence, you realize you're thin. Actually, you're better. This is what happens when you go ghost for real, not for attention. It's not as a trick, but because you've chosen to step out of the emotional chaos and reset. It's like when your phone overheats. You don't keep using it until it breaks. You power it down, let it cool, and give it a moment to function again properly. Well, your mind and emotions are the same. When you were caught in the loop of constantly texting her, worrying about other replies, or overanalyzing her silence, you weren't operating at your best. You were stuck in reactive mode. Ghosting, when done for your peace, not for revenge, is an emotional reset button. The Stoics taught that control over the self is greater than control over others. You can't force her to change. You can't control how she treats you. But you can choose to remove yourself from situations that drain you. When you do that, something unexpected happens. Clarity returns. The fog lifts. You stop living in the what if and start living in the present moment. You'll realize how much energy you were spending on trying to decode mixed signals or keeping a dead conversation alive. And the truth is that exhaustion wasn't love. It was emotional liver commit to someone who wasn't meeting you halfway. Imagine you're at a party and the music is too loud. People are arguing. The lights are flashing. Your senses are overloaded. So you step outside for air. In the quiet, you realize how tense your holders were. You finally breathe deeply again. That's exactly what happens emotionally when you go ghost after being too involved in someone's roller coaster. This isn't about desappering to punish someone. It's about stepping back to protect your sanity. It's about realizing, like Epictetus said, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. And sometimes the first step toward that freedom is cutting off the noise that keeps you stuck in cycles of stress. So if you've gone ghost and right now you're sitting in that silence wondering if you did the right thing, remember this. Your nervous system is finally catching a break. You're no longer reacting to her moods, or texts, or her attention games. You're recalibrating. And once you've gone through this emotional detox, you'll be able to see clearly who deserves access to your energy and who doesn't. That's the power off distance. It resets you. But now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever reached that point where you knew you needed to step back? Not to get a reaction, but to get your peace back. What did you learn about yourself in thought silence? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Or if you're not sure what to say, just type, "I choose my peace." That simple sentence can be your reminder and your declaration that sometimes walking away is actually walking toward yourself. All right, let's move forward and talk about what happens next when you fully embrace this shift. Number 6, you become the lesson she didn't expect. When you truly vanish, you stop being part of her daily routine and start becoming part of her memory. But here's the catch. You're no longer a captor. You're the plot twist. A stoic man doesn't ghost to punish. He disappears to grow. And sometimes growth is the lesson that echoes louder than words. Think about it. When you go ghost for real, not the fake version where you're secretly checking your phone hoping for a message, but the real kind, where you step back to reclaim your peace, something shifts. She no longer sees you as the guy who's always available, always explaining, always trying to fix things. Instead, she's forced to sit with the silence you leave behind. In silence, it teaches better than conversation ever could. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." That's exactly what happens here. By removing yourself, you're not sending her paragraphs about how you feel or what you want her to understand. You're not begging for respect or pleading for her to change. You're simply letting your absence do what your words never could. You're becoming her consequence. Imagine it like this. She took your consistency for granted, maybe even expected you to be part of the background noise of her life. Then suddenly you're gone. No texts, no calls, no social media lurking. That's when the emotional gravity hits. She has to face a new reality without your energy in her world. And that realization, that's the part she didn't expect. A Stoic man knows his value doesn't need to be advertised. He doesn't scream for attention or force a lesson on anyone. He just lives in alignment with his principles and lets people learn from the distance. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply step back and let someone feel what life is like without you in it. So when you disappear, remember this. You're not being cold. You're not being cruel. You're choosing your growth over chaos, your peace over confusion. And by doing that, you unintentionally become the lesson she never saw coming. Not because you wanted to teach her, but because you refused to stay where you weren't valued. Number 7. Time turns absence into time. Turns absence into impact. Days pass, weeks pass, the silence gets shivier. Not for you, but for her. You're busy building, reading, training, creating. You understand what Epictetus meant when he said, "First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do." Your ghost mode isn't passive. It's productive. Most people think going ghost means disapparentamento, nothingness. But that's not what's happening here. You're not just fading away. You're shifting your focus from chasing someone to chasing your higher self. While she's stuck wondering why you vanished, you're out there sharpening your mind, strengthening your body, and designing a life that no longer revolves around temporary attention. And this is where the real shift happens. See, time does something powerful when you stay silent. It turns absence into presence. Strange, right? But think about it. When you stop showing up, stop texting, stop explaining yourself, your name starts living rent-free in her mind. She replays the last conversation, checks old messages. She starts to notice the gap you left. And here's the Stoic truth. Nature hates a vacuum. The mind tries to fill empty spaces. And when you go ghost for real, she fills that space with thoughts of you. Not the you who is chasing. The you who suddenly isn't there anymore. This is what happens when you go ghost for real. You're not just ignoring someone. You're choosing to redirect your life force. A Stoic man understands that control begins with himself, not with trying to manage someone else's attention. You let time do its work. You let the silence stretch. And in that space, she starts to realize something that words could never teach her. You were never just a moment. You were a presence. And now that presence is gone. So keep going. Stay building. Stay silent. Let time handle the part you don't need to. Because sometimes your greatest impact happens after you've left the room. Attraction shifts from chasing to wondering number. Attraction shifts from chasing to wondering. Most men try to keep attraction alive by constantly reaching out. But the Stoic man knows sometimes absence is more powerful than presence. When you go ghost, you create a vacuum, and nature hates a vacuum. Her mind starts filling it with, what if he's moved on? What if he never comes back? That wondering is where real attraction brews. When you're always available, there's no space for curiosity, no space for mystery. You're like a song that's been played too many times on repeat. She knows exactly how it goes, and the effect wears off. But when you go ghost for real, not just disappearing for a day or two, but truly stepping away. The dynamic changes suddenly. You're not background noise anymore. You become the question mark in her mind. You stop being the man who's chasing, and you become the man she wonders about. Stoicism teaches us that a fear often intensifies in absence. Seneca once said, "A pleasure long expected is a pleasure doubled." That applies here too. By withdrawing, you give her mind something to chew on. It's no longer about you sending texts to keep her entertained. It's about her pacing in her own thoughts, wondering where you've gone and realizing that to her presence had weight she didn't measure before. Picture a guy who used to message her every morning. Good morning, every day like clockwork. She got used to it. She stopped responding zimitis. Maybe she even started rolling her eyes. But one day he stops. No explanation, no goodbye, just stillness. Days turn into weeks. That's when the shift happens. Her brain starts to loop back. Did I push him away? Is he over me? Why isn't he checking on me anymore? That loop, that's attraction railing. Not because you chased her, but because you stepped back and let Herman do the chasing. This is what happens when you go ghost for real. You stop over-investing. You stop forcing connection. You let the energy balance itself. And ironically, your absence starts speaking louder than any message you could have sent. It's no longer about proving your worth. It's about letting her realize it on her own. That's Stoic power. That's emotional discipline. And that's how you turn chasing into wondering. Now, before we move on, I want you to pause for a second and reflect on this. Have you ever been in a situation where you were too available and noticed how the other person slowly stopped valuing your presence? Or maybe you've experienced it the opposite. You stepped back and suddenly they started paying attention in ways they never did before. This isn't about manipulation. It's about understanding hunt nature and learning to protect your own energy. Number 9, you find peace in the unknown. Going ghost is not about control. It's about surrender. You accept that you might lose her, and you're okay with that. Like the Stoic said, amora ti levier fate. Even if she forgets you, you won't lose sleep. Why? Because eurybacy. Mastering yourself, not chasing closure. Most men stay in a loop, constantly checking their phones, overanalyzing the silence, wondering, did she move on? Is she thinking of me? Should I break the silence first? But there's the thing. That's not peace. That's anxiety disguised as caring. When you go ghost for real, you stop negotiating with the unknown. You stop trying to predict her next move. Instead, you embrace it. You understand, like Marcus Aurelius did, that if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. So, you shift your focus from her absence to your own presence. Imagine this. She's out there living her life, maybe scrolling through her phone, noticing that your name no longer pops up. At first, she might feel relief, but as days turn into weeks, curiosity starts creeping in. Meanwhile, you've already let go of the outcome. You're reading more, training harder, building something that has nothing to do with her. You're living. And here's where their all peace happens. You're no longer holding your breath waiting for a text back. You're not playing games. You've simply stepped back into your own lane where you don't need to know what she's thinking because your self-worth ISN tied to her reaction. That's the difference between ghosting out of fear and ghosting with power. In fact, the more you release the need for control, the lighter you feel. The weight on your chest fades. The overthinking stops, and slowly you realize you don't miss her as much as you thought. You miss the version of you who was chasing something gunstable. But now you've traded that for calm, for clarity. This is what happens when you go ghost for real. You don't just disappear from her life. You appear in your own. Number 10. You return stronger, or you. Return stronger, or you never return at all. Some men ghost and come back weaker. They disappear for a while, hoping to trigger attention, and then return with the same insecurities, the same habits, the same need for validation. But a Stoic man, he either returns stronger, or it never returns at all. That's the difference between playing games and living by principle. When you go ghost for real, You're not just stepping back to get a reaction. You're stepping into solitude to become a new version of yourself. Because ghosting in its truest form isn't about manipulating her emotions. It's about mastering your own. If life ever brings you back together, you won't be the same man who left. You won't need her to complete you. You won't need her to confirm your worth. You'll come back with sharper boundaries, clearer purpose, and a calm that can't be shaken by temporary feelings. And if the path never crosses again, that's also part of the plan. Like Marcus Aurelius said, the obstacle becomes the way. Sometimes desperation is the lesson. Think about it like this. When a warrior returns from battle, he's either more disciplined or he's defeated. There's no middle ground, and the same goes for ghosting with purpose. Your time away should be buttraffining your mind, your mission, your habits. Maybe you're hitting the gym with more focus. Maybe you're starting that business idea you kept delaying. Maybe you're finally reading the books that shift your mindset. You're not ghosting to prove a point. You're ghosting to build a life where you don't have to explain your value anymore. Your silence wasn't revenge. It was evolution. It was the quiet decision to stop chasing circles and start walking a straight line toward your own growth. Some men disappear for attention. But you disappear to transform. And whether you return or stay gone forever, you're not the same man who left. That's what happens when you go ghost for real. And that's the real truth. When you go conclusions host for real, you're not vanishing to play games or manipulate emotions. You're stepping away to reclaim your focus. Rebuild your inner strength, Andromov, yourself from patterns that no longer serve you. You're not disappearing out of weakness. You're accusing solitude as a strategy. In the silence, you grow. In the absence, your eyes, and whether she ever reaches out again or not. It doesn't matter because the man you're becoming no longer needs validation to feel complete. You feel ready one by choosing yourself. If today's video gave you clarity or shifted your mindset, let me know in the comments. What part of going ghost resonated most with you? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Make sure to hit that like button if you found value in his message. And don't forget, there's more wisdom waiting for you. Watch the videos on screen right now to keep growing in strength, in peace, and in purpose. I'll see you in the next one. Stay grounded, stay disciplined, and as always, protect your peace.